What is up, my Yu-Gi Bros? I'm your host, the RJB0. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! In Business Casual. So a long time ago, I made this video where I discussed the concept of degenerate decks and what it means for a deck to be degenerate. And in that video, to which I will have a link in the description below, I said that the word degenerate is abused more than any other word in the Yu-Gi-verse, meaning it is just thrown out totally meaninglessly, and that actually, come to think of it, isn't entirely accurate. I can think of two words off the top of my head that are abused more than the word degenerate. The very first one is the word broken, which I think is fairly universally accepted to be meaningless in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now because we essentially slap that label onto anything we find halfway decent. But the one that I really want to focus on for today is the word skill. More importantly, the word skillful when pertaining to a deck, and even more abused is the word skillless or unskillful when talking about a particular deck or archetype. Now, this is extremely important to talk about because the word skill is the most important word in any competition. By definition, a competition is the matching of two persons' skills. So when you accuse a player of being skillless, that is the worst insult in the entire competitive world of anything. And when you say that a player's deck is unskillful, it implies that they are either totally skillless or aren't willing to use their skill in the game, and that is a really bold accusation for you to make. And you can make it sometimes because sometimes it's accurate, I'm not going to lie. There are players out there that are skillless, and there are decks out there that are also skillless. But before we can do that, we really should have some evidence behind us, and in order to have evidence as to why a player or a deck is skillless, we really need a definition to what makes a deck skillful or unskillful. So naturally, a deck being skillful means that it requires a player to use their skill to the best of their ability, which means that we really need to define what skill is to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. Now, there are a lot of facets to skill in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are a lot of parts to it, a lot of factors. When you are talking about skill, you're talking about creativity, you're talking about foresight, you're talking about knowledge of your deck, you're talking about knowledge of your opponent's deck. Every part of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a different factor in what makes a player skillful, but it all ultimately boils down to one thing, and that one thing is the ability to make strong judgment calls. The ability to make decisions is the center of skill in any strategy game such as Yu-Gi-Oh! You use decision making when you are making a deck. Anything you do when you are playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a decision making ability, unless you have issues reading or something like that, in which case you probably have bigger issues than worrying about your skill in Yu-Gi-Oh! So if skill is based on that airplane got no respect. If skill is based on your ability to make decisions, then a deck that is skillful challenges a player's judgment. It means that you have to use your ability to make a decision at many times throughout a game. You have tons of tough decisions to make if you are playing a very skillful deck. And this is one of the reasons why I usually say that the Dragon Ruler formats were two of the most skillful formats in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's because there has never been a deck in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That has required a player to make more decisions at any given time than the old versions of the Dragon Ruler deck. The current version of the Dragon Ruler deck is a wee bit linear, so it doesn't require you to make so many decisions now, but in the past you had tons of decisions every time you moved a card from one place to another. What dragon do you mill to the graveyard with Dragon Shrine? Or Dragon Ravine? When you summon a Dragon Ruler, which Dragon Ruler are you going to summon? Which Dragon Rulers are you going to use as cost? When you banish that Dragon Ruler, what are you going to search out from your deck? When are you going to use Sixth Sense? What Xyz monster are you going to go for? There are tons of decisions required in a Dragon Ruler deck. So that's why I often say that Dragon Rulers were some of the most skillful decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But there are a lot of players that would disagree with me on that point, because a lot of players would argue that even if you made the wrong decision sometimes when you're playing Dragon Rulers, it wouldn't really affect your ability to win that game. And that actually highlights a really interesting difference between the casual and competitive mindset. In the casual mindset, a deck can be unskillful based entirely on power alone, because in an extremely powerful deck in a casual setting, if you make the wrong decision, sometimes you're still going to be able to pull through the win because the deck is just that powerful. In a Dragon Ruler deck, if you summon the wrong Dragon Ruler at the wrong time, you're still probably going to put a Dracosac on the field and stuff like that. But in the competitive mindset, there is no such thing as a deck that forgives misplays. A misplay is a misplay in the competitive game of Yu-Gi-Oh! The only thing that can forgive a misplay in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is either your opponent drawing badly or your opponent making an equal or greater misplay in their own playing of the deck, which means that there is no such thing as a deck that forgives misplays, which once again brings us back to decks that require us to make more decisions, giving us more opportunities to misplay in the first place. So a deck that is more linear, that doesn't give you that many options, that many opportunities to make misplays, is the very definition of what we call autopilot, which is what makes a deck skillless in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know in the comment section below. And of course, describe what you believe skill to be in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And what it means to you for a deck to be skillless. I will be discussing other words that I think are abused in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the future, including the word broken. Meanwhile, subscribe for more deck discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.